Worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Good morning. And welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. You are now in touch with the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. When I give you the signal, you can call into the station by calling 1-877-932-9766, and we will try to get you on as soon as we can. We have a lot of Gmails to read since we've been off for a couple of weeks, which reminds me, today being December the 2nd, we will have this show, and then we will have another live show on December the 9th. And then from December the 16th, 23rd, and 30th, there will be no show, but you can hear our show on the our 24-hour streaming program, probably in the same time slot. And then we will resume the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller on January the 5th, 2016. So you got 2 weeks here so we can get things going here. If you would like to Gmail me, you can by Gmailing me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Now, I will tell you this, excuse me, I am backed up on Gmail, so probably if you do Gmail me today, I will not get to your call, or rather your Gmail, at least this week, but maybe in the coming weeks I'll have a chance to go through those. Let's see here, what else? Oh, yes. If you would like to send in donations for the sponsorship of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, that is still in the process of being set up. And what you would do when we do get it set up, this is very important. Do not send any money or any donations to Mr. Fuller. He does not accept that donations, and he will send those back to you. So don't do that. When we do get it set up, it will be sent to TalkTainmentRadio.com. And we do thank you for some people who have already tried to send us donations. Thank you, for that, but we're not exactly ready for that. But when we do, we will make an announcement, and then we can go on from there. Okay, I think that's all the house cleaning I have to do right now. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, that's what we have to do to set up right now. If you hear any noise in the background, that's me. I'm trying to get my phone on mute so you don't have to hear that in case, some people call in. Some people are disturbed by that, but we're having some problems connecting to a Wi-Fi network. I don't know what's going on with that, but we'll get that straightened out. Okay, with that being said, I think that's all the house cleaning I have to do. You get a right to speak to the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, and it is a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. My guest, Mr. Neely Fuller, and it's an exclusive because he is only on our internet radio, that is TalkTainmentRadio.com, nowhere else. Now, he does do other radio, terrestrial radio, so I'm told, but he has an exclusive with talktainmentradio.com. You will only hear him on our internet, and he has been on other internets before in the past, so you may hear past shows, but you will not hear any live shows because he is with us. He's ours, so there goes with that. Okay, let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Mr. Fuller, how are you this morning?
I'm still learning.
Yes, sir. That's what I want to hear. Before we open up the phone lines, lots been going on in the last couple of weeks, so I'm going to give you a chance to open it up.
Well, it's most of it is just a continuation of what has been going on, so my response will be just to whatever questions people have that pertain to whatever they think out of all of those things that have been happening. And a lot of things have been happening. Mm-hmm. The riots, the shootings, the trials, the dismissals, the firings of people who are in law enforcement, and the recommended firings of others, the political scene and the meetings that are being held with some of the candidates and all of that. Mm-hmm. So it's a flurry of things that's been going on, plus the usual killings that go on all over the world.
Yes.
And people want to talk about that. I mean, it's an ongoing thing.
It's an ongoing thing, yes.
Yeah, right, and the so-called Middle East situation, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
That involves, to the extent that it involves people who are classified as non-white. Mm-hmm. And all of these things. And just the general things like the housing problem that we're having, and the job problems that we're having, the education problems, all of the areas of activity. So just anything and everything that anyone is interested in, and particularly this time of year when money was being spent, we can address that if someone wants to. Mm-hmm. So I'm just open to whatever questions people have for the most part.
Okay. One of the things that me and my group were discussing and did a little research on, we noticed that a lot of big city police or law enforcement agencies seem to have trouble, and in particular, the Los Angeles Police Department, what we brought up, the Rodney King situation was brought up, the New York City Police Department and the problems they were having, in particular the death of Mr. Eric Garner, which was really was almost taken directly from Spike Lee's movie that he had out, Do the Right Thing. And now this latest incident in Chicago with Taquan McDonald, and that alone what happened down in Charleston, South Carolina, with the two shootings in there, and not that they have a large police department, but can you see or help us connect the dots with these large metropolitan police departments, or maybe police departments in general, that this seems to be a pattern that has been going on for a long time?
Well, and we have a system, the world government called the system of white supremacy. So that automatically means that when there's any kind of disturbance of the system or any kind of incident that might be disturbing to the system, then there's most likely to be the deaths of non-white people and people who are in what we call law enforcement all over the world, someone who is authorized to use force to put down any kind of disturbance among the non-white people of the world will do that. Mm-hmm. That's why I have repeatedly said this will continue.
You have said that, yes.
Yes, until we get an understanding with the general population, white and non-white, of this entire planet about what should and should be done when it comes to law enforcement. The law enforcement officers, particularly the white ones, are being sent mixed signals. They have been sent signals that they have received all of their lives from the time they even started grade school, that, dark is verboten, that anything dark, any people that are dark, or people that just might be up to something that they shouldn't be up to, and that you shun them. You move from their neighborhoods. I mean, wherever they are, whenever they come around, you watch yourself, because they are like wild animals. They are monsters. They are erratic. They are something that you shun, and you're taught throughout, even in the language and whatnot. Everything that is dark, a dark mood. Now, no one has ever photographed a mood, but if you're in a dark mood, that is a mood that's supposed to be bad. That's a mood that's supposed to be that you don't want to be in. If you're in a light mood, I mean, and nobody's ever photographed a light mood, my knowledge, I don't know how you do that or draw a picture of a mood, but it's all in the language. So if you're a white person and you hear this all the time, and you hear all these derogatory jokes and whatnot about dark-skinned people, I mean, they're coming out of the darkness. I mean, the boogie man, they call him, and they do the boogie. I mean, when they dance and all of this.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, by the time you're 30 years old and you're wearing a badge and a gun, well, there goes one. I mean, he's out there in the middle of the street. He looks like he doesn't know where he's going or what he's doing. He looks like he's got something in his hand. Shoot it, just like you would any animal that's unpredictable, that might jump up and do anything, anywhere. And you've been taught this. And dark skin, sure, that's what you do. Shoot, because you don't know what's going to happen. Something evil is going to happen. Dark is evil. Dark is evil. Black is evil.
Yes. Let me ask you this. Does it surprise you that that in the latest killing, at least as of right now, the Chicago Taquan McDonald killing, that the Burger King that had a surveillance tape, my understanding is that the Chicago Police Department went in there and looked at surveillance tapes and erased 86 minutes of that tape, and this is on record by the Burger King management. Said that they did that, claiming that that the police officer, and I did see some of the graphic video. He claimed that his life was in danger, but according to the video that was shown, the young man was walking away and just. It was almost like target practice. Boom, boom. 16 shots entered into that young man's body, and he lie there dead. And in my mind, I'm trying to figure out, well, how could this man feel threatened when this young man, I guess he was high or something, was walking away? I don't understand it. Can you shed some light on that?
Well, it's just the whole background of the system of white supremacy here again. Now, you have different kind of targets now, for one thing, but the traditional target is what? Black and white. I mean, when you take target practice, when you are, taking archery lessons or something like that, shooting a bow and arrow, or you're shooting a firearm, you shoot at what they call the bullseye. The bullseye is usually black on the traditional target.
Yeah, it is.
So you're in law enforcement school. This is when you draw your weapon and you're given so many seconds to squeeze off so many rounds, I mean, because that's how they're going to rate you. Otherwise, you're going to lose your job. You got to get those fire. You got when you draw that weapon, you have so many seconds to get off so many shots. So that's the type of mentality that goes with that.
Yes, sir.
And you got to put them in the bullseye, which is traditionally, now they got a lot of different kind of targets now, because I think someone might have mentioned that down through the years where they have them in green now and all that type of thing.
But traditionally,
the traditional target is a bunch of round circles, and all of these circles are black on a white background, and then the large black one in the center, the largest of the circles, is completely black.
Yeah.
And you want to get those bullets right in there each and every time.
Wow.
And you want to do it in record time.
Yeah.
So naturally, when you wheel up and you see this, what you have been taught all your life, animal, dancing in the middle of the street with some type of glinting object in his or her hand and all like that, kill it.
Kill it, yeah.
Not kill him or her.
Kill it.
Kill it.
Right.
It's an it. It's a thing.
Okay.
Get rid of it before it does something. I mean, you don't know what it's going to do.
No. Okay. You're listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTameItRadio.com. Speaking about that, TalkTameItRadio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility that have hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, health, wellness, religion, politics. And here's one that I would like to share with you, and it's called This is Libby. Libby is all about empowering women through health, wellness, and a positive mindset. This is Libby deals with the social culture, politics, and economics in the healthcare and wellness industry. Come, get liberated with an expert in the field of health and wellness, Miss Libby Rand. She broadcasts on Mondays exclusively here on Talktainment Radio, and that is radio the way it should be heard. Okay, you can pick up the phone and you can call 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and we will try to get your calls in. Hey, Galen, you're going to have to help me here because my board is not lit up. So, okay, line number one. Okay, just give me the fingers. Okay, line number one. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. How may he address your question? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, you are now on.
Hi, my name is T, and I'm calling from Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
And I have two comments and I have two questions.
Okay, got to make them quick now. Okay, go ahead.
I will. Mr. Fuller, my first question is, I observe when I'm speaking about racism with black Christians, I notice how they dismiss the use of all reasoning with logic, and they discourage questioning and problem solving through questions. And I wanted to know, is this, in your journey of truth seeking, is something that you have observed with people who are either religious or who are Christians?
Mr. Fuller?
Oh, well, different people have been taught different forms of Christianity, as in all religions. You have different forms of Hinduism. I've been led to understand Confucianism, Buddhism, Islam, which right now, the entire world is in turmoil about what is Islam? What is the real Islam? Will the real Muslim, the people who practice the religion of Islam, will the real Muslim stand up or come forward? Because there are so many different types of Muslims now, everybody is saying. And traditionally, there have been all forms of Christianity. This is why you have a different church with a different name on each corner. You would think that just ordinarily, I mean, in a normal order of things, if everything was centralized, then every church would have the same name. It would just be Christian church, or a Christian temple, and that's it. No Methodist, no Episcopalian, no Catholic, and those are the main divisions I have heard, Protestant and Catholic. So you'll find as many forms of Christianity as you will probably find preachers, because preachers themselves sometimes disagree about what different passages on the Bible mean. Right now, there's a turmoil going on all through the religion of Christianity about what is sex and what is marriage. And this is going to be a big one. A lot of ministers are dodging it or whatnot. They don't rather not even approach it, but it's going to have to be approached. And, it might be that there's no such thing as sexuality in the way that it's been taught in most religions down through the ages. But it's going to have to be faced because it's a part of the society now. I mean, the sexual mores, as they say, are changing. And I have my own ideas about that. So naturally, when people come to the table, under any banner of religion, one of the first things you're most likely to have is a whole lot of squabbling.
Okay. And your second question, dear?
My second question is, during the so-called civil rights era, did you have an opportunity to meet any of the other victims who were openly resisting racism? And did they learn about your compensatory concept?
Oh, well, wait a minute. Maybe I didn't get the essence of the question.
Could you read it? Could you say repeat your question, dear?
During the civil rights era, there were a lot of victims who were openly resisting civil racism, like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and other people that we call leaders. Did any of them have an opportunity to meet you or read or learn about the compensatory concept that you've written?
No, I never met with anyone in a formal setting for the most part. I just mostly went to meetings myself and listened to people. I never heard Martin Luther King speak in person. I've heard Malcolm X speak in person, and people like Stokely Carmichael and other people from time to time, Dr. John Hendrick Clark, writers and whatnot. You might not call them leaders as such. Dr. Ben, and just people who gave their opinions on how to approach the race problem down through the years. But I never had long conversations or any substantial conversation or even a few words with most of the people who were what you might call black leaders during that era or even since then. But I do listen to people talk. I listen to everybody, and I recommend that everybody be listened to.
Yes.
That's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't reject anybody, even people that you disagree with. I mean, totally. I mean, listen to what they have to say, because every now and then somebody might say something that might be useful, might be constructive, since no one has solved the race problem.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That's a part of what I write about. Mm-hmm. No one has solved the race problem yet, white or non-white. And it's the biggest problem on earth. So someone might stumble up on the answers.
All righty. Thank you, Atlanta, for your phone call. Thank you so much. What line, Galen? I can't see over here. Line number 1? Okay. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. How may he address your question?
Yeah, you got me?
Got you.
Oh, okay. Good morning to you and Mr. Fuller. I try to listen to you every chance I get, and thanks for taking this call. I do not have a question for Mr. Fuller, but I'd just like to add to this conversation that you're having with decent human beings. Now, I am just a cry in these wilderness of North America. Now, many of our people are being bamboozled. They're being hoodwinked. They think that the power structure do not want us to see these terrorist, psychopathic images they are projecting to us and the world. People think they don't want this thing. They want you to see it. They are setting it up for you to see it. They are creating a context for the genocide and extermination that they are finna to do to us. These images also desensitize good, decent Caucasian people who are not psychopaths. As they keep showing them these images, they would get desensitized to us as human beings. These people are the biggest terrorist psychopaths ever walked this planet. And I do my job. I try to point them out because they project a different image to the world. Now, what I say to people, and Mr. Fuller got his way, what I say to people, if they are able to get out of here, if they are able to get their children, their grandchildren out of here, they should leave. I'm not telling you white supremacy is not all over the world. But what I am saying right here, right now, they are fitting to exterminate us. And if you can go somewhere and try to save your grandchildren's life or your life, then you should do that. Because this is what they have planned.
Okay.
And they will not be stopped.
All right, my brother. Thank you for your comment, Mr. Fuller. In some of the meetings that I have gone to over the past couple of weeks, this term came up, and I want you to address this: domestic terrorists. What is that, or is that a new term, or have you heard of that, or what is Neely Fuller's thoughts on this so-called domestic terrorism?
Well, the person who will have to, who should, according to what I've written, when people use a term, the person who is using the term should explain the term. That's the logical process, because different people have different definitions for the same terms. Mm-hmm. And so this is where you get confusion, which is the one thing you do not want in any conversation. It's confusion.
Well, the terms that were pointed out to me were the Ku Klux Klan was pointed out. The people who I was speaking with, and they had pictures of domestic terrorism, even back into your neck of the woods where you were born at in Oklahoma. The Black Wall Street was mentioned, that that was really the first form of domestic, so-called domestic terrorism. I happen to think it was when the so-called Puritans came over here and what they did with the Native Americans and so forth, and got the what they now call Thanksgiving, which I'm no longer a participant in that situation. It was not like what we learned in school, not the real so-called Thanksgiving, what it was really about. But anyway, that was explained to me that that was the idea of the domestic terrorism, that they were people in white sheets, normally called the Ku Klux Klan. You have a comment on that?
Well, what I do in the textbook for victims of white supremacy, I say the system of white supremacy in capital letters. The system of white supremacy itself is a terrorist system. It's designed. What is terrorism? Causing great fear. And that's what it's designed to do. Great fear, great destruction. That's terrorism by most definitions. Mm-hmm. So if you look around for who causes most of the fear on this planet, among the non-white people of the planet, they are the people who practice white supremacy worldwide.
Okay.
Each and every individual is a master terrorist. If he or she is a white supremacist, they are master terrorists regardless of where they are. And this word that goes in front of them, like domestic, somebody else will have to explain that.
Okay.
I don't know what that could mean.
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing domestic about terrorism. So what are you talking about?
Okay.
Terrorism is terrorism. You're either causing fear, where you're going to harm someone unjustly, or not.
Okay. We're going to go to the phone line. Line number 2, I'm going to get you, but I have to admit that as you answer your question, or as Mr. Fuller addresses your question, we're going to have to go to break. But you are on right now, so go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. This is Tyreek from the Bronx. My question to Mr. Fuller is, what does the role in the Paris bombings have to do with the system of white supremacy as far as causing confusion?
Okay, good question.
Oh, the white supremacists, that's their chief weapon, is deceit. They have 2 weapons that they use, deception and violence. And both of them are forms of violence. When someone is deceiving you to your detriment, in other words, doing harm to you in any of the areas of activity, by deceiving you, that is a form of indirect violence, whether it's in economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, or sex. It's a form of war.
Or war, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's basically no difference there.
All righty. Mr. Fuller, Brother Tyreek, hang on. We have to take a break here. TalkTameAtRadio.com. Check us out on WCRS FM 98.3 on Wednesdays and Sunday evenings. Blogs and podcasts are available, and you can download the TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. Listen, we go where you go, and it is radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We're going to have more of your calls. Tyreek, we're going to get to you on the other side of the break. This is TalkTameAtRadio.com.
Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Go ahead. Make my day.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
You got the power.
All righty. Welcome back to a second slice of the action here on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host of the Compensatory Concept, heard exclusively on Talktainment Radio with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. He is a dynamic guest. That somebody asked me about that second slice of the action. You know, I do sports broadcasting sometimes, and especially in basketball, we would always say, and I got that from Mr. John Gordon, who is now the voice of the Minnesota Twins. When he was here in Columbus, Ohio, broadcasting for the Columbus Clippers, he would, and the Ohio State Buckeyes, he would always say, welcome back to the second slice of the action. So that's not original. That's not from me. That's from Mr. John Gordon. Beautiful voice of the now Minnesota Twins. Let's see here. In this particular time of the year when there seems to be a lot of giving going on, listen, you need to do this. If you're going to be giving something, why don't you give a copy of Mr. Fuller's book, which is called The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. It's a nice book. It's very detailed, and there's an additional word guide with it. And Mr. Fuller, before we go back to the phone calls, can you just speak for a minute or two on your book, where we can get it and all the information that we need, the word guide and so forth?
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of the basic textbook. That's a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and/or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy, and the method for ordering. Mm-hmm. If you go to producejustice.com, and there's also an additional book, some people get both books, it's called a counter-racist word guide, compensatory counter-racist word guide. It deals with words, how to use words, how not to use words, and mostly what questions to ask. Like we just had one just a few minutes ago called domestic terrorism. When someone uses those type terms, ask them politely, what does that mean? What does that domestic terrorism, and how does domestic terrorism differ from terrorism, period? Or are they one and the same in a practical sense?
Good question.
Or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You might ask 24 questions just about one term alone. And why is this? Because the racists themselves use a lot of terms that are very vague. And you always want to know exactly what a person is saying when they are talking.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, you get what? You
Confusion.
get confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing you don't want in any conversation. From confusion comes all kinds of major problems.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so the textbook workbook for victims of white supremacy, and I'd like to say this again, I want to emphasize, the book is directed toward individual persons. So no person really argues with another person about, the validity of this point or that point or any of the things that are being said. It's just for each person to read, make up his or her own mind, and then think, speak, and/or act accordingly.
Okay.
And you just pick out what makes sense to you as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
The things that don't make sense, don't ever buy into anything that doesn't make sense.
Okay.
But I recommend the book as just a basic guide for the individual person in a system of racism who is a victim of racism.
All righty. All righty. You heard it right here. And we are live today on the 2nd of December, 2015. If you'd like to call, you can do so. We have a line open, 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and might be able to get to it. Let's go to line number 2. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question that he may address?
Yes, this is still Tyreek from...
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Tyreek. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I would like to actually have a comment for Mr. Fuller because I'd like to add on to my question before about the bombings in Paris. I was watching an interview on television. I forgot the gentleman's name, but the gentleman said that he was willing to give up all of his freedoms if it meant that he would be better secured and more protected by the government. And since then, we've seen, or I've seen personally, especially during the holidays, Thanksgiving, an increase in security, especially in Manhattan. They showed armed guards with automatic machine guns. And this is just, as Mr. Fuller said, is playing to the fear and the confusion of people. But I just was wondering why Paris in particular, why France? Because France is one of the most imperialist nations that, of all time. And they actually have colonies set up in Africa, and they have played a major role in the domination of people.
Yeah, Haiti.
And so, yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And they have helped produce, people like Napoleon who have been driven to conquer and bloodlust.
Okay.
And so I just, I was just confused on why they were using ISIS to use this form of terror on Paris.
All right. Thank you, Tyreek. Mr. Fuller?
Thank you.
Well, here again, you have a lot of confusion. And so I always blame any confusion that results in the deaths of non-white people anywhere on this planet. The usual suspects, and that's the term that I use, the usual suspects are always, without exception, those people who practice, who are classified as white, naturally, who practice or participate in the practice of racism that we call white supremacy, the system of racism. Anywhere they are on the planet, they are guilty because they are a member of that system. And by them not even taking the initiative to stop it, if any non-white people are being unjustly harmed in any way, it's their fault.
It's their fault.
Why? Because they're in charge of the entire world. That's why.
Okay.
And it doesn't make any difference what kind of label they use. Whether they call themselves citizens of this place or members of this organization or that organization, you don't have to get into that.
Okay.
You just say, or if you're a white person and you're either practicing racism or you are not. And if you're practicing racism, which means mistreating people, dominating and mistreating people based on color, then you are a racist and you are a part of whatever happens anywhere on the planet. You are a member of that army. Whatever happens on the planet that is adverse to the constructive interests of non-white people, you are a guilty party, wherever you may be.
Okay. Using that, and we have to take a station break here, but using that, going on with Brother Tyreek said, using the Paris bombings and the Russian plane being shot down and other things that we don't know about in the news, could it be similar to a worldwide martial law type of situation, in your opinion?
Well, it depends on what all these words mean. I just broad brush it, just like I just did.
Okay, all right.
I just simply say, you check into it and you ask the question.
Okay.
Are there any non-white people who were unjustly harmed by whatever act it was in any area of activity, a plane going down? Were there any non-white people on the plane? And if the answer is yes, the usual suspects are the white supremacists. End of story. End of story.
Or the Boston.
They should, if they don't want to be charged with being guilty, they should not have taken charge of the entire world.
Okay. Or the Boston Marathon that comes to my mind. What was that all about? Okay, line number one. Line number one. Wait a minute, got to take a station break. You are in touch with the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTameRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard, 1-877-932 9766 is the number you can call, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. I am Mr. Bobby, the co-host of the Story Concept, and you're listening with Mr. Neely Fuller. Whoo! Line number one, you're on. Go ahead.
Peace to you, Mr. Bobby, and peace to Dr. Neely Fuller. We always enjoy your show, enjoy you when you speak truth to power. And I'd like to make a short comment about the brother that called. And also I'll end it with a question for the brilliant Dr. Neely Fuller, which we enjoy very much. The brother that just called in, he talked about extermination. Well, brother, we're constantly being exterminated. We're being exterminated 24/7, 365 days of the year, every minute, every second, every hour. Mentally and physically, we're being exterminated. And as you know, Dr. Neely Fuller and Dr. Francis Crest Wessling and all these brilliant people, Wessling, I'm sorry, all these brilliant people talk about it every day. So we are constantly being exterminated by the media. Secondly, we have no solutions with each other. We don't listen to each other. We don't support black business. Dr. Neely Fuller has a beautiful book out, the codes and things like that, which I will be purchasing. My uncle will.
Good.
And my God, we're constantly being exterminated through the killing. He just talked about it a few minutes ago, Dr. Neely Fuller. And then he says, when will it end? It will never end until the system of white supremacy is eliminated.
Yeah, with the system of justice. What is your question for him?
I want to ask Dr. Neely Fuller. I want him to define exterminating. And this brother said, we got to get out of here. We got to run. We got to this. And I just like to hear Dr. Fuller to elaborate on that.
Oh.
Where we run.
Okay.
Where will we go? And you all keep up the good work. I'm Abby. I'm from St. Louis, and you have a beautiful day.
Okay. Thank you, Missouri, for checking in. All right. Mr. Fuller, you care to address that?
Well, different people have a different definition. Here we get into words again about what do you mean by exterminate. Now, if it means exterminating all of the non-white people, my view on that, which I've expressed in the book, I call it population tailoring. The white supremacists do not want to put themselves out of business as white supremacists. So if you follow the logic, they're not trying to kill all of the non-white people on the planet. If they wanted to do that, that would have been done a long time ago because they have the muscle. All they have to, in fact, they wouldn't have to sneak and do it. All they have to do is announce it and just tell the people, if you got color in your skin, prepare your funeral because I'm going to kill you. All of you. You're not going to be on this planet. Everybody on this planet is going to be white. Now, if they wanted to do that, they could have done that a long time ago. Just start carpet bombing and poisoning the water and everything else. They got all kinds of ways of doing it.
They're doing that now.
No, but I'm saying they have never had that intent in my mind.
Okay, all right.
The reason why, if you're in business, the system of white supremacy is a business. So you have to have a reason for being in that business. The reason for the system of white supremacy is not to exterminate all of the non-white people on the planet, but to intimidate them. If they will kill half of the non-white people, all the people of color on the planet, they would nurture and keep the other half.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because how are you going to be a white supremacist and you don't have anybody to be supreme over? I mean, that's the logic. So what they do is tailor populations. They'll go into places like what we call the so-called quote-unquote Congo or Nigeria or Rwanda, and they'll run little experiments, or like they do all over the Middle East.
Which they have, yes.
Right. And they'll just say, well, let's eliminate maybe half the population here or 3/4 of the population. I mean, or run a little experiment where we kill maybe 1 million or 2.
Like the Tuskegee experiment.
Yes. or like in Rwanda, where they have them hack each other to death.
Or like rumors. Ebola and AIDS. Go ahead.
Yes, right. And there you go, AIDS and all like that. And so when they reduce the numbers down to a certain number, then they say, okay, let's go in now and stop the diseases from spreading. You know, and they do this. I mean, it's like fun and games. It's all fun, and everything that they do is just fun and games with non-white people.
Right.
I mean, you know, little experiments. Let's try this on them. Let's try this out for size.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, and let's go over here and see if this will work on this population.
Absolutely.
And they'll eliminate a few here and a few there and all like that, but they never intend to eliminate their real basis for wanting to exist.
Okay. You know, and you hit on some very good points. Now, it's not laughable when I say it's funny. People, you know, accept the fact of the Tuskegee experiment, you know, because they admitted that this was done. But sometimes, Mr. Fuller, what surprises me on a show that I used to have on Talk Radio, we did the research on AIDS and found out that it, along with Ebola, is a genetically created disease that was created by Dr. Robert Gallo. Now, I'm saying this, not Neely Fuller. I'm saying this. You could look it up for yourself. But it amazes me that a lot of people do not accept that especially under the secret virus program, that these things have been and are still being done, you know, and perpetrated amongst people of color, and people don't believe it. That just baffles me. But they accepted Tuskegee experiment, which was I think it was a syphilis experiment. They wanted to see how this would affect these men and women and their girlfriends or wives over a period of time. They do this kind of stuff. You know, I don't know if that's related to a different type of quote unquote domestic terrorism, but anyway, regardless. Okay, that was me. That wasn't Neely Fuller. That was Mr. Bobby speaking. Line number 3. Okay, line number 3. You are on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr.
Hi, good morning. Mr. Fuller, my question is, in the system of white supremacy, how should black males and females value and relate to each other?
Say that again?
How should black males and black females value and relate to each other?
Oh, how should black males and black females relate to each other?
Yeah.
Oh, in the most constructive manner. And first of all, when they first meet, if they're going to interact with each other and they're going to get serious with each other, once they decide, and it may take a period of time, that they're going to get involved sexually, meaning sexual intercourse and or sexual play. That's how I describe it in the book. When you go that far, because that's when you're getting serious, when you start talking about sexual intercourse. That's the only time you're really talking about being serious, okay? Once you reach that stage where you're talking about the first time, it's an understanding you should get, and that is both persons should ask and answer at least anywhere from 120 up to 100 or 200 questions, 175 to 200 questions, somewhere along that range. And I've written out a list of questions and answers that will come out in my next volume that can be asked. And all of these questions should be asked and answered before the first act of sexual intercourse. And this automatically slows everything down to a crawl, because there's not supposed to be anything that a person wants to know about the other person when you're in the act of sexual intercourse, because you already know everything because you have discussed it. Every possible question that can ever be asked should be asked and answered by both parties so that you are not in bed with a stranger. That should be absolute. That should be a part of what we call black culture and cemented into black culture. And then that way you won't come up with those 3 fatal words that you keep hearing. I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know you were on parole. I didn't know you had HIV. I didn't know that you were still married. I didn't know that you had 18 children. I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know. Well, you should have known, because you didn't ask. So that's what we don't ask. We ask maybe about 10 questions, like, what's your sign, or something like that, and that's about it. Okay? And now we're ready for bed. No, that's inadequate.
Okay. What's your sign? I'm laughing because it's true. Line number
Always
2.
True.
Line number 2, you are on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Oh, hello?
Yeah, go ahead, line number 2.
Yes, sir. Bobby, I hear a lot of African-American men call different talk shows talking about genocide and extermination, but the thing with me is for, if you look at this from a logical point of view, for every 20 unarmed black men that are killed by white police officers, we kill between 4,000 to 7,000 of each other. So who is it that's actually behind? Who is it that's actually complicit in this genocide that we so arrogantly talk about on these radios? So is it the white police officers, or is it us?
It's the system of white supremacy itself. It calls it both. It's not either or. It's both. It's both white people killing black people and black people killing black people, and it's all because of the usual suspects, the white supremacists. They are behind it all. Any harm that comes to non-white people that shouldn't happen in the system of white supremacy is the fault of the white supremacists. There's no way around that. You always start with the truth if you're going to ever solve a problem, and that's the truth. Even the Kerner Commission report, when they talked about the riots of the 1960s.
Yes.
I mean, they studied it and went from city to city and sent out all kinds of people asking all kinds of questions and whatnot. And they say, well, what was causing the riots? Why are you having all these riots between black and white? And they said, well, it's because of white racism. You have a system that breeds that type of thing.
That's right. I studied the report. You're right.
See, so I'm not saying anything phenomenal. It's nothing but just, you might say, should be listed as common sense. It's nothing but logic. In a system of white supremacy, it breeds all kinds of hostilities of all kinds. That's what it's designed to do. It's designed to cause turmoil and death and destruction. Otherwise, why have a system like that? Mm-hmm. Why not have a system of justice where everything is constructive? No, it's designed to do things, even build up, to destroy. That's what the system is about. And too many people love that system. And the non-white people can minimize it. Let's talk about what to do about it now. You can minimize conflict by doing what? Minimizing all non-constructive contact. Black culture has gotten to the place where just about every contact that a black person makes with another black person is supposed to be destructive.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, caller. And I'm not going to ask you what's your sign. That's a good one, Mr. Fuller. I like that, and it's true too. Well, we've come to another close of another outstanding show. Thank you, callers, for calling in for your inquiry. I didn't get a chance to read too many emails today or Gmails today, but we'll try to do better next week. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Live show next Wednesday, the 9th. And then we have some more information to tell you.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. Heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com.